Welcome to It's Not You, It's Grief, a safe space to have candid conversations surrounding the many faces of grief. How do you handle the process while moving forward and ultimately getting back to living in the moment? Come on this journey as we navigate grief through the art of storytelling. And now for your host, Ahira Smith.
Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are watching this live. Yes, today is February the 4th, 2024. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ahira Smith. I am the grief mending coach, and you are with us on It's Not You, It's Grief podcast. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful Sunday. I know this is different. Usually my podcast is usually happening around 5:55 p.m. And obviously, there's a significant reason for that specific time. However, due to the content in which we're going to be talking about today and my special guest, we had to move it up just this one time, just to move it up. So right now, I would like to talk to you about a specific topic that is coming right on time. You know, everybody knows that February is Black History Month, and February also represents a very special, significant holiday in this country known as Valentine's Day. So you're going to see a lot of items out in the different stores and on commercials and different streaming services about Valentine's Day. And though people really want to have those lovey-dovey special relationships, and there are many out there in the world, there are also relationships that is not kind. There are relationships that unfortunately is very detrimental to people's success and happiness. It can be very toxic. And so what I wanted to do was kind of flip the script regarding relationships in terms of grief and loss, and to specifically focus on a term that is getting some buzz nowadays. This is something I probably would have never put two and two together, like maybe 5 years ago, but now I'm hearing it more and more often because of mental health and just people are feeling more comfortable speaking out loud about it. And the term that I am referring to regarding relationships is called trauma bonding. Yes, trauma bonding. And so, with that, I kind of want to talk to you all about what exactly is trauma bonding for those who have never heard of it. And it's okay if you haven't, you know, a lot of things come out every single day, but there are people who may be in relationships that are toxic, but they don't understand why the level of toxicity is where it is. And so, just to kind of give you a little idea of what trauma bonding is, it tends to be first created in most cases through people's early childhood experiences. Sometimes it could definitely be between that of a parent and a child, as far as a disruptive attachment that has taken place from the primary caregiver. And with that, it creates an unhealthy relationship, not only with that parent and the child, but it also can create unhealthy relationships for that individual, in this case, a child, where they start to try to form relationships with other people who are of their age and their demographic, even to going to where it follows them into an adulthood. Also, when it comes to not binding, sorry, trauma bonding, it occurs when the victim has a psychological response to abuse, which develops into a sense of affection of or empathy or sympathy for their abuse. Okay. And another thing about trauma bonding is it tends to be formed, and it also has a tendency to find strength in a current relationship because of past traumas. So, for an example, you might have been raised in a single parent home. You might have lost your father at a young age or your mother at a young age, and you might have formed a relationship with somebody who's also had a single parent experience and their father or mother is not in their life. And so, because of that commonality right there, there might have been a form a partnership or relationship uh, forming attachment due to the past trauma of that dysfunctionality, you know, and it can also be perpetrated with the present relationship. What I also want to convey out there is that trauma bonding, there's nothing positive about trauma bonding. Trauma is not positive. So let's get that out the way. And additional to that, it can be very destructive, and it's definitely not the same as being codependent. Somebody who has codependencies, the difference between that and somebody who's dealing with trauma bonding is somebody who's a codependent may enable an abuser's behavior towards them, as opposed to somebody who is in a bonding relationship. That may be something where they still try to find the love through that person's action, even though it can be harmful to them in dealing with trauma. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this again, Valentine's Day, relationships, everybody's about the love, everybody's about feeling all wholesome, but not all relationships are good. Not all relationships are copacetic. And so, with that being said, I am very fortunate and blessed to have found somebody recently, discovered somebody through a group that I'm a part of in terms of public speaking, and come to find out that this person is not only a U.S. veteran, and again, shout out to all of my military people. Thank you for your service. But not only is this person a U.S. veteran, he is also a member of the finest fraternity out there, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Shout out to all of my blue and white family folks out there. And he's an author. Yes, I have an author on my show today. And the title of his book, interesting enough, is called An Unfinished Journey, Black Man's Divorce Memoir. I'm not done yet. So I have the opportunity to have a gentleman who is going to be very candid and transparent regarding his journey dealing with a divorce from his marriage. And I am so grateful and so thankful that he had decided to come on my podcast here to talk with people. And so without further ado, I want to bring on Mr. Alfred J. Robinson. Hey, Alfred. Hey, Frat. How are you?
So I'm wonderful. I'm blessed. I'm stuttering as a speaker. It's awkward for us to stutter, but I'm just humbled, sister, that we were connected by God, and that we have an opportunity to have this conversation, anti-trauma bonding conversation during the love
Yes.
season, to let everyone know that it is possible to love again. It is possible to get out of the trauma bonding situation, the repeat cycle, and that there's some action steps that have been taken out. I'm just grateful to God that we were connected over just a short time ago, and you asked me to come on this cast, which is already has a huge following. You have a tribe, and I'm just started. I've been single for a couple of years now, but I'm just started on this journey of being a published author. So I'm grateful to serve my community who looks like me first, and then everyone else. And again, thank you. My platform, my book is an unfinished journey. I'm not done yet. And as I said to you before, in 2020, it really added the title, A Black Man's Divorce Memoir, because while it's a memoir, it is a platform for Black men to be able to speak and say that the trauma that we go through, not only out in the world from police cars and the boss at the office and everything else, but the trauma that we go through at home, and
Mm.
we aren't heard and seen. So I am that voice. I've done my 30 years, so I can speak from an expert point of view with love.
And I appreciate that. That's why I wanted you here, because we need to hear. We need to have this communication. There's a lot of untruths when it comes to relationships between men and women, but particularly between black men and black women. And we need to be in a position where we can sit down and speak with one another, not talk at this person, not talk it that way, not talk to each other, but really speak and have a conversation. So, with us being constitutionally bound in between our organizations, I'm like, you know what, we need to talk about that other type of bond out there that impacts people regardless of affiliations, regardless of demographics or social economic. And this is it, and so we're just gonna have a good conversation. I just want us to talk about it. I definitely want you to share your expertise because as you said, I don't think men in general are have a safe space to just be candid about
Well
what
said.
the type of trauma that that takes place, because there's this persona on what you have to portray out to the rest of the world, but you're human. Men hurt too, so I'm just very thankful and blessed that you have agreed. So let's get to the nitty gritty. I'm about to get me a sip of water because we can do this all day, but I also know that we have a limited time. But please know that this is just based off people's experiences. I am a grief coach. I am not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. So I just want to put that out there. Alfred is coming from his own experience. He is an author. He works with different organizations and in terms of helping men, particularly Black men, heal. And so this is our conversation. We're not putting it a stamp on like this is for everybody, but this is a general conversation. So let's get into it. Please, please, please tell me and tell my audience exactly what happened. How did it come to where you had a relationship, a marriage for a great length of time to the point where the divorce came about? And I know you could go on and on about it, but just what changed? Just to start from there.
So for the sense of time, because I have a book signing in Newark, just for the sense of time, I'm going to say this unapologetically. It was not my decision. And I want to take a pause with this. It was not my decision. It was God's decision.
Mhm.
When I decided to marry the woman that I loved, and when I did my vows, there, no matter what we went through, I intended to stay forever. However, the evolution of time, there's some situations in the book where describes it, but just time happened, and God had another purpose for me, and that God had another purpose for her. It's not me by myself. We were married for a very long time, over a quarter of a century. So we had different purposes for us. So because those purposes were different, we have our three beautiful daughters. Those purposes were heading, and now it's time for us to go into our next thing. A lot of men aren't that blessed. A lot
Mm.
of marriages aren't that blessed. So that answers your question. I hope that answers.
Okay. No, it did. I mean, listen, I've always been a firm believer when it comes to marriage. When people are making those vows, they're not necessarily making it to one another. They're making a covenant to God regarding the relationship, that they have this that made a choice. They intentionally chose to be with this person. So the covenant that you've made is to that of God. And that's just my belief and my upbringing. So for something that had resonated with both you and your former spouse to part ways like it did, something great had to occur to where you guys are now at this place. And so, one of the things I wanted to know from you is I know that very seldom do you hear divorces being amicable, that it was good.
That was
It was,
the word.
that it was copacetic, and I'm sure that there was probably some moments when it wasn't. And so I kind of wanted to know what what type of grief did you encounter regarding the loss of your marriage of after all those years, and this is a person who was the mother of your children. What type of grief did you experience during that time?
Well, let me do this. We brother and sister. We blue and white. So
Right, we blue and white.
jacket on, and my mind is on my book signing. But let's sit back and relax.
Oh,
Let's
we
spill
can. Okay, great. Let me get my water. Wait.
let's spill the tea a little bit. Uh,
Okay.
um, so to answer your question, it's the jacket and I'm on my next thing, but I'm gonna stay right here. Eckhart Tolle. I'm gonna be right here, present in the moment.
Okay.
So with us, again, it wasn't a voluntary decision. The turmoil afterward was the standard turmoil afterwards, and I intentionally intentionally and unintentionally plugged the divorce memoir because in that book I share a lot of me in that book. And men can attribute and understand pieces of that book. You understand what I'm saying? To sit in
Hmm.
front of a judge, to be treated like you're non-human. And we are not in
Mm.
the 1800s. We are not, there's no horse and buggy. But somehow when we with men of color get inside that courtroom or the lights shine on behind us, that trauma comes up. You
Mm.
understand what I'm saying? And
Okay.
I speak to those periods of no power, and our power literally being taken away from us, even though it's not. And I speak to that. So to answer your question, um, it was a situation where the standard Americanized legal system minutia occurred. And it was uncomfortable, and it kind of helped birth this conversation because I've been through it, and I can help both sides of the fence.
Did you feel like you had to lose a part of who you were in order to gain this new perspective? Or
It was
were you able to keep it
the cleansing.
intact?
The cleansing has occurred. The cleansing
Okay.
absolutely has occurred because here's the thing. It's like a phoenix. The phoenix
Mm.
can get no longer continue with the same shell that it had before, or you can do the eagle. It's just not possible to continue to fly with the same equipment. It's like a rocket taking off. It can't continue to fly without the booster. Not saying that the marriage was a weight. I'm giving um, I'm giving examples of in order to arise. In any example, something has to leave. So in any relationship, when there's a separate, whether it's a job relationship, whether it's a personal relationship, whether you go into the supermarket and you picking up some bread and then there's a separation. The money comes out of your pocket in order for you to get the bread and things.
Right. No, I get that. And so like you said, we frat and soror. So let's just be candid. I know for me in my past relationships, I've been through some trauma. I have.
Hmm.
And because of the mindset of not only where I was, but the mindset of the person who I was dealing with. And sometimes because of that trauma, unfortunately, it started to enter my threshold to where I started questioning. I'm like, well, where is this all coming from? Or now I'm like, don't put me in the same category of the person who gave who where the trauma began, because I think a lot of times we are reluctant on starting another relationship because of that trauma. We just never deal with it.
Yeah, we bring luggage on the plane that we don't want to bring. And because we bring that luggage with us, we are carrying the luggage, and therefore we don't enjoy the ride. So, yes, I experienced extreme pain. I experienced extreme pain for years, and was not aware of it. I was
Mm.
a cognitive dissident. I was not aware of how much pain I was going through, and it was years later after therapy, after really doing chakra work and really doing deep dive into myself, that I realized, I was hurt. And I was like, okay, so I'm extremely hurt. I've been living blind for years. How do I get out of this? And then that's probably where the rewriting of the book. The book was a download. That's the brilliant thing for the people who read it. The book is a download. So when I started rereading the book, I was like, oh, this is what I got. So yes, it hurt. Yes, I went through times. Yes, I did the work. I did the therapy, and I did the self look at myself, looked in the mirror, and I was like, oh, I need to correct this. I need to correct this. I need to correct this. Because in order to go into my next, I can't bring these things with me because I won't be fully present and I'm not available for her. So, how could her and I go forward if I'm not fully present?
When was that light bulb moment? When was like, oh snap? I mean, I know I don't want to give too much away from the book because that's why I want everybody to make sure they purchase the book. But when was that aha moment where you were like the light bulb came on? I'm like, oh my God, I've I'm going through trauma. I've been through PTSD, in a
Woo,
relationship.
woo, woo.
In a relationship at that.
I did a
Because we all have. I know I
we all
have.
talk. You know, God is good. I love God. I did a talk one day at one of my mentors. He talked about post traumatic slave syndrome. I loved the talk. So I mirrored the talk and I wrote my own post traumatic slave syndrome talk, mirroring his talk. And then after I talked, I did the presentation. Everybody was like, yo, that was great. Great takeaway. I was like, cool. I went home and I was like, oh, sugar, honey, iced tea.
Mm,
That was a intended pause. I did the talk. It had a huge impact on other people. And I came home, I sat down chilling. I was like, oh, sugar, honey, iced tea. And I cried. And I
mm.
was like, oh my God, I went through this. And then and I close with this. You and I had a brilliant conversation. And for your tribe that's out there, for my tribe that's out here, please ask us to do this again. Because that brother sister conversation with lid off is so valuable. I went to my therapist, and the therapist was having a conversation with me. We exchanged things. It was cool. And he said something to me, and I was like, "What? That's no, not me. No, that wasn't the situation at all." And because I exist in love, and because I exist in a different, I said, no, let me go check this out. Let me go home. Let me journal this. Let me write this. Let me go to my dictionary. Because I'm old school. So mom had encyclopedias. So we had a
Right,
subscription
right,
encyclopedia.
right. You had
Encyclopedia.
that big 38 volume of encyclopedias, man. You listen, you Gen Zs and millennials, y'all don't know how big those encyclopedias were. And every year they came out, those things got heavier and heavier. We're like, gotta clean the shelves. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's what this is about, sister. That's what this is about. So I said, let me go back to the Encyclopedia Britannica because that's the way I was raised. Let me look this up. And I was like, the true definition of what it really is. And I was like, oh, I got work to do.
Mm,
I got work to do. And so it is when I started doing the work that I attracted the minister to come up to me to say, hey, I publish books too. I was like, oh, I never knew that you did that. And then it was still a year later before I said, here, publish this for me. You know what I mean?
mm.
But I went and did the work. I asked the questions. And because I asked the questions and I did the work, answers came. And yes, it hurt like mother, father, sister, cousin, nephew.
So it definitely left you open and vulnerable with the work that you had to do. And if and I don't want to be presumptuous, but I want to, I take it that you're still doing the work.
Oh,
Because one of the things I'm realizing as I get older is that at this stage of the game, we're just trying to manage. You got to be, there's got to be a continuation. There's got to be a continuum. It's not, you can't, it's like working out. You can't work out 30 days, think you're going to get a six pack, and then you may see a two pack and then you're done. No, you got to continue on to get that six pack. That's the same thing regarding your own self healing. It's a continuation, it's a continuum. You got to, you know, expose yourself
it's a
to
daily
yourself.
it's a daily Q&A. It's a daily Q&A, and that daily Q&A has to be a trackable. In order for change to happen, it has to be trackable.
Mm,
And one of my mentors, we were talking about this, is to start tracking stuff so that at the end of the year you can celebrate the wins. Let me do
okay.
that for you. Let me do that for you again. We track the next series. We binge watch these things. We track when we're going to go to the gym. We're going to do this, but improving ourselves, who's the only thing that matters, we don't track. So we don't know when we improve, except for our weight.
And even then, we don't wanna look at that scale, be like, "What did that weight say?" So, I get it, I get it. Um, I got so many questions, and I'm just being downloaded right now. So,
It's a
what I
beautiful. Wait, take a
it
moment.
it
Have
it
you?
is. Thank
You
you, thank you. Let me get my moment. Okay, got it. When you say that you were tracking yourself and it's a daily Q&A, did you notice that the questions were getting tougher for you?
Okay, so verbiage. It's not tougher. My desire for the answer was greater than the question. So the request for a deeper dive, going into the Mariana Trench even deeper, and the more that you go into the deeper inside of you, the deeper you get. We don't want to go to do the deep work. We people of color, we have so much trauma. We want to stay on the surface because we know we want to stay on the skin level because we know even a little bit under skin hurts too much.
Mm.
What Uncle Rashid did to us, what cousin Marion did to us is right there. So we definitely don't want to go to the cellular level because that hurts too much. And if it hurts too much, I don't want to deal with it. So I'd rather go out and have a cigarette. I'd rather go and smoke some weed. I'd rather go to the bar than deal with the level. So was it a tougher ask? My desire for the end result was far greater than the ask, so I was willing to do the work then. Now I don't want to do the work. It's like, oh no.
You're like, "Oh, I'm tired. I'm tired of doing the work. I'm now I want a partnership, you know." And I know, and I'm sure that's where a lot of
Yeah.
us wanna go, is that we want that partnership, but we also know that nobody's perfect.
Hmm.
Everybody's gonna have some shortcomings. And so
Well said, sister. Well said.
I mean, but I mean, it's about being transparent. I mean, look, the stories, the fairy tales are just that. They're fairy and they're tales. We're living in a different world. We're living in a different society than when we came up in the 70s and 80s, and now we're living in the digital world where you got machines bringing folks dinner plates of tacos and nachos. You know, we're living in an AI world. You know, and when we're downloading, so to speak, you know, it gets to the point where we lose that human essence, we lose that human touch, to where the feelings, or the thoughts of empathy fall by the wayside, you know. So I
Mm,
know I know for me, and this is just me and my experiences. I know when I look at different relationships, whether it's partnerships for business or even associates, friendships, or even if I want to be in a relationship with somebody, there's got to be a certain level of an alignment within myself, because I'm only going to attract what's in me if it's in me.
I have a question.
We go ahead.
Ooh, I don't have
Ask.
a question,
Ask.
and we can open this.
Oh, let's break it open. Come on.
We can open this. We're elevating as a woman of color.
Hmm.
As I'm getting younger and younger. I'm getting younger and younger. I verbalize that, so my body it takes that. So I'm getting younger and younger. Now having our experiences, we have
Hmm.
kids.
Hmm.
I'm speaking in general out tribe. I'm speaking in generalities.
Hmm.
I'm speaking for
Okay.
everyone.
Okay.
We expect we're coming to the table with children. We expect that we're coming to the table with bills. We expect that we're coming to the table. But in us coming to the table of having a conversation of just you, male and female, having a companionship, what is her responsibility? What is his responsibility? And when do we bring that to the table? On the first conversation, on the second conversation, because we were over 40. We're
Hmm.
the halfway mark. We
Hmm.
each individually know what we want, but
Hmm.
when do we take the time enough to be respectful to say to each other what we want? Or do we sugarcoat and play games like we 19, 18, 19? I don't know the
Okay.
answer to the question. I'm just putting it
But you,
out there because of the
but you,
vibration of what you were saying, and we
okay.
do sister. If
Uh,
we were not doing brother sister, we were doing a regular conversation. There would be no way I'd bring that out.
Well, no, okay. So let me put it out there. I cannot speak for every woman of color over the age of 40, because all of our upbringings and lifestyles differ. Let me just put that out there. I'm just going to speak on me. My energy and my time is my currency.
Let's go. Okay, we talking now.
I don't have time to waste.
Okay.
We all have more yesterdays than tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So if I vibe with you, if I'm connecting with you, I'm going to have that conversation with you sooner rather than later.
Nice.
That's just for me. We have somebody on here. I'm using a new platform, folks. That's why we're on Facebook Live with StreamYard, and it happens to be this comment is from Tara Hammond Lloyd. This is Soror, if I'm not mistaken. This is blue and white representing.
What's
She
going
said,
on?
I think she said, I think what most 40 plus are saying is that it needs to be on the table up front. Life is too short. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I know for me, I'd rather have this in the open because again, the energy doesn't lie. We talked about this. Energy does not lie. It's transferable, but it doesn't lie. If I'm vibing with you, let's have this conversation because what I don't want is time that could be spent elsewhere, and that's not necessarily, oh, I can go to this person or I can go to that person. It could just be stuff that I need to focus my attention on. But if I'm looking to build an empire with you, we need to talk.
Say that one more
Because
time.
I'm listen.
That one, I need you to say that one more time.
I'm putting it out there. I'm not looking to be in a relationship just to say I have a relationship. My currency is of a different level. I am building an empire. I'm not, oh, I want to be a queen. No, 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 no. I don't want a kingdom. I'm building an empire because what I'm building is my lineage. And I need to be somebody who's going to be on that same level with me. And if you're not, that's okay. Step to the side. But I know what I don't want. You know what I mean? So I believe, to answer your question, for me, my time and my energy is currency that cannot be afforded to be played with any longer. And I've made that decision. That's why there are certain people who cannot approach me.
Yeah, we had
And
that
we
conversation.
had that conversation. There are certain people who cannot approach me because they know I'm on. Listen, I'll tell you something that my brother, my blood brother, had told me the other day, and he is so true. I was not created of this world.
Ooh, 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 ooh.
I was not created of this world. The assignment that I have on my shoulders that is draped on me is not of this world. So, for those who are listening to this conversation, please understand I am not of this world because what is in me is not of this world. So we having this conversation, Frat. Let's go. We go back and forth. We can do it. I mean, again, we were talking about your book, but let's get into it. Oh, somebody has another question. Hold on. Okay, wait. Let me put it up here. The other question is to ask is are there 40 plus year olds that are still wanting and willing to build? I personally think yes. I do
Do they
believe
have
that.
the language? Do
Hmm?
they have the language? Does the female aspect have the language? The male.
No, do both parties. Let's wait. Let's
Yeah,
be
I was
clear.
pulling back. I was pulling
Pull it
back. I
back
was pulling
because
back. I was
because
pulling back.
it goes both ways because we remember we don't people there's a difference between talking at each other, talking to one another, and speaking with each other. That's the
And that
problem.
and now we're doing this brother sister thing. We're doing this brother sister thing. The things that we see are the majority of females. Hear me, hear me. What we see on social media, what we see in the streets, what we see portrayed on TV, what we see in what our eyes and ears predominantly take in is a conversation of women of pigmentation speaking other than our conversation that we're having right now. So our conversation that we are having right now, to answer your question, Soror, is that yes, the woman that you were talking about, yes, exists. That's why we are having this conversation so that these women and these men have a safe place to come out and have conversation. However, the Gestapo dogma that's prevalent speaks differently than what we are saying right now, if
The
that
fact
makes
the fact that you said dogma and Costapa, man, that's old school in its.
I just language. I mean, sister, you elevated the whole question. Let me just tell you, Let me just tell you how the brilliance of women. Let me just tell you how women.
Please.
Let me. Oh my God! Please, I hope this is recorded.
It is being recorded.
The
We're
female
live.
energy, the female, what a woman, not a little girl, not a lady, not a child, not a pacifier sucker, but a true woman when in her essence, what she brings far surpasses anything else. So we as men can simply add to and complement. And that's where the 69 comes in of elevation of moving upwards.
They
That's
ain't ready. They ain't ready. They ain't ready, Frat. They
but
ain't
but
ready.
but, but we can't do that unless her energy is more charged than ours. Cause anyway,
but
so
but wait. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I don't think it's ever been a question on whether or not our energy is not more charged than the men. It's just one, what's charging the energy? Two,
ooh,
how are you managing the energy?
nice. Okay.
And three, where is that energy going? You know what I mean? Because again, and really add another one, are you self-aware of the type of energy that you
Let's go. You did
possess?
all four. You did all four genomes.
Right.
You
Yeah, I mean, right. So my point is that the energy itself, again, it cannot be created nor destroyed, just transfer one entity to another. But within those of us of a spiritual belief and faith, it's an energy that's already in us. And trust me, I did not recognize the level of where I'm at right now until recently, until I started embarking upon this journey of grief and loss. Please believe me, because I was vibrating at a very low level.
mm,
I was attracting people that was not of my caliber, and more importantly, not at the worth level that I needed to be at. So I settled. I made excuses. And for those of us who know what excuses are,
tools of the
but
wicked.
what?
I'm
But
There's a book about that
I
was written
but
about
I
that. Something.
however, I still projected that because that was the level of comfort I was in. I was stuck in that mindset. No longer is the case. That's why that's why it's interesting how certain situations and people resonate with me now, because it doesn't matter if you're family or not. If you're not in alignment to where I am or that of my assignment, I have no time for you.
And I'm just consolidating and being respectful of time. This goes back to the original question. This goes back to the original question that you asked me about the separation of her and I, and this goes back to my answer of we were separated. Many may not understand it, but I did also say if it was my choice, I would still be there.
Right,
However, it was not my choice.
right.
There was something else for her to do. There's something else for me to do, and I'm living in that. You and I elevated to a point for us to meet.
Absolutely.
Not had not we elevated at the time and point that we elevated at, we could not have met.
No, not at all. No, not at all. So, since you threw that question at me, let me bring this question back to you. Let me bring you a different question. So, for the fellas in particular, especially those who are that
Oh, you don't want to do that.
yes, I do. Yes, I do. That's why I asked it. It's my show. I can ask. Yes, I do. For the fellas who have been traumatized, regardless if it's in a relationship with a significant other or traumatized from their upbringing. What is it? What two or three things could you suggest for the fellas to start doing or continue to do to heal what's wrong or what's broken, or better yet, to change the perspective on the change the perspective of what relationships are to be right now for them?
Okay, so that's a better word because I wrote about this heavily in the book. Um, there is no right or wrong at all. At all. It doesn't exist.
Right.
So for the fellas, I told you didn't want to do this. So
But you did
for
it
the
anyway. We family. We family.
um
This is live,
so
people. This we ain't making this up.
right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because we leaning on the shield. They've had a vision. The 8 of them had a vision. That walk around the park was a conversation with a vision for this conversation to happen right here, right now.
Come
Yeah.
on.
Anyway,
Come on.
so to answer your question, I apologize. To answer your question, 3 things. First of all, you have to be aware that there's a situation. Because if you're not aware that there's a situation, nothing else matters. And the way of understanding that there's a situation is that new information has to be introduced to you. So until new information is introduced to you, until you have a new experience to open your eyes that there's a situation and you can look back, or until you start to ask questions. So that's 3 different things right there. First, you got to realize that there's a situation. Second, from realizing you have that, or we won't even do that. First, you have to realize it's a situation, or you have to start asking questions. You have to start asking questions, or you have to say, "I want more. I want something else. Is there something else?" Which is questions, but it's different. You know what I mean? Because questions could be like, "Is this right? Should I? Should I not?" It's a different question as opposed to "I want more. How do I get more? What do I need to be more?" These are more self-reflective. You know, um, and then you have just a general question like, is this the way it's supposed to be? There's doubt in those questions. You know, the self-reflective, the upward vibrations. When you're going into the top 4 chakras, did you ask you ask a different kind of question? You know, it depends on where you are, but there has to be, what is this word? There has to be a blunt force trauma to occur. And from that blunt force trauma, it causes a situation that questions start to ask. You start to ask questions.
Hold on, hold on. I gotta interject. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. When you said with a blunt force trauma, because of the person's upbringing, they're either going to be in fight mode,
Paradigm shift.
right? So my or my thing is though is that in order for them to be self-aware, in order for them to, like you said, ask more questions and ask more of themselves, I think what they have to do, and this really falls along the lines of what it is that I tell my people when it comes to grief and loss, they got to give themselves permission to do so. They got to humble themselves and recognize what is present.
Okay,
We
so you're
don't do that.
point of view. You're coming from the trauma point of view. Yeah,
Right. I'm a trauma care, and I'm certified as trauma care. So this is coming up at me. But yet we have, because trauma, a lot of times when people think of trauma, obviously it's either psychological or it could be physical. Especially if it's physical, the bruising, the healing may take place physically, but the body still remembers that trauma, because
yes.
that's why it goes to the psychological.
Mhm.
So to me, it's like you have to, like you said, you have to acknowledge it. You have to give, but in order for you to acknowledge it, you got to give yourself permission to do so.
Mhm.
Because a lot of us in this society that we live in, we're told to never bring it up, don't talk about it, suck
Train.
it up, rub, right, we were trained, rub some dirt on it, it don't, are you
Robotussin.
hurt? Hmm.
Robotussin.
Right, put some tussin on it. Everybody know about that tussin. Put some tussin on it. Or are you hurt or are you injured? Those are two different things.
Ooh, are you hurt or are you
Are you
injured?
injured? That's an athletic thing. Sorry, I grew up with athletes, but that's the difference. Are you hurt or are you injured? Because if you're hurt, it means you can still keep going. You can still
Right,
play. But if you're
right.
injured, then you got to take a step out. A lot of times people, as well as I do, people will still keep going to work when they know they don't need to be going to work. People will still play that game knowing that they're injured because of what is expected of them. That's why I said you got to give you right. You have to be self-aware. But in order for you to do that, you got to give yourself permission, i.e., be in a safe space to do so in order to let that come about.
And the brilliance of this conversation is that we are railroad tracks having this conversation. So there still has to be an event or a paradigm shift in order for the question to be asked to give yourself permission. And if that doesn't happen, then we stay individuals stay on the hamster wheel, because we are so pressurized like rice in a pressure cooker to provide for the family, provide for the family. Don't think, don't do nothing, make sure the bills are paid, make sure the bills are paid. Whereas the financially free-minded or light-minded are taught different things, so they think different things, so they move in different ways. There is no difference, it's just a difference of information.
Mhm. But as you said, like when people are in that pressure cooker, or in this case, like the hamster wheel, that hamster gonna get tired, and that wheel's gonna slow down
But the
to
hamster
where
will never know it's tired until it's dead. I'll say that to you again. The hamster will never, actually, the hamster will never know it was tired because it'll be dead.
that part, that part,
Take some time on that.
that part. Yeah, that's and
And
that's
you
and it's
me-
unfortunate because we know people who are on that constant go to where, unfortunately, they don't see that tomorrow. They don't make it to their 50th birthday. You and I both know that we have lost people who didn't make it to their 50th. I know I lost a lot of classmates these past couple of years, whether it was a pandemic or not, who didn't get to see their 45th or 47th birthday. That speaks volumes.
27 during the pandemic. Here's the question. Let me ask you this question. For
Okay,
us,
go ahead.
for us having this conversation, and I really think the energy is demanding that we do this on a regular basis. But for us having this conversation, what's the biggest pain? The loss that we experience, or the idea of the potential that we knew that this particular person had? Is it our upset at the loss of the person that we know? Is it greater of the loss of the human being, whether it be brother, sister, lover, cousin, aunt, uncle, whatever it is? Or is it the loss of the potential? The graveyard is the richest place on the face of the
It
planet.
sure is. That's what I was about to go there. I was about to
No, no,
go
but
there.
I'm not gonna give you permission. But
But listen, there was many a times when I lived in my former establishment where I would walk through cemeteries.
oh, okay, you're an empath.
I'm very much an empath, absolutely. I walk through cemeteries because of the stories that I would conjure up in my mind as to how these people lived. And then based off what I see on their tombstones as far as the date they were born, and everybody's like, "Oh, the date you born and die, it's that dash." And I've been like, you know what? I wonder how many people got to live their life to the fullest,
Mm.
in who are laid to rest. Notice I said laid to
Mm.
rest, not necessarily resting in
Uh-huh.
peace,
Uh-huh.
because there is a difference.
They don't
There is
stop.
there's a difference.
Hmm.
And so, to me, to answer your question, without question, it's the potential. For those of us that we are close with, it's always going to be the potential, because we're like, they could have, they should have, or they would have. But it depends on the relationship of that individual and that person that is deceased. I know people who have lived a full life to the age of 15 years old, and they were dealing with health issues, but they lived their life to the fullest, and then for whatever reason God decided to take them on home,
Hmm.
versus somebody who was 80 years old, who lived lived a life with regret for so long
Hmm.
that regret was internalized to where they got sick and then they passed.
Oh, you
So
did do that. You did. I was wondering how you're going to do that, but you did that. Okay.
this is what I do. But at the end of the day, though, I see things in a different set of lens, maybe because of the work that I'm doing now in the grief and loss. But I definitely think it depends on the relationship that that person is has with the person who's been dealing who has departed from this existence, because it's always about the potential a lot of times, because I think that's what trips up a lot of people in relationships, especially trauma bonding, that they stay with a person because they see the potential. Oh, I see the potential. If he does this, if I hang on to this person, she'll do this or he'll do that. I know that was mine. That was mine. Because I always wanted to see the good in people. But
Hmm.
if you don't see it within yourself, I can't make you see what I see. My
Hmm.
glasses are that of my prescription. Well, if I give you my glasses if I give you my glasses for you to put on, you ain't going to see the same thing I see.
At all.
So it's definitely with the
Grace,
potential.
getting to the point within yourself, a human getting to the point within themselves to give another person grace to be themselves. That's a masterful point to be. So you give yourself room to allow that person to be whoever they show up to be. As they say, the old school, if you show me you a snake or whatever the thing is, then I'm gonna believe you. You know, and I'm not gonna
Without,
try to prove
yeah,
you. This
yeah.
new age does this. These new people, this young group, they do that. You know, and then they walk away in a heartbeat. Um, so yeah,
So
this is what's your next question? Because we didn't change this whole thing.
we did. We
Elevated
started off
thing.
with what
You did it.
I
I'm going
didn't
to
do
be a
anything.
black
I didn't do
man and
anything.
saying, you did it. You led me down this street. I had my full
I didn't
uniform
do
on.
anything. You really did. You had the pin and everything, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. You know what? I have people. You know what? Honestly, I just to kind of sum it up, because I know we're running short on time here. But I know for me personally, I just I want I want people to start having these conversations in a way that is safe. Most important,
That's my last.
because safety is essential. I also want people to be authentic and organic with these conversations, because it's all no two people are created the same way. No people are have experiences the same way. You may be a sibling of a twin, of identical twin or a fraternal twin, and you
Three.
may grew up with the same person, but you still your own individual. So I think it's just important to acknowledge that the space needs to be safe, that it needs to be organic, it needs to be authentic, and we just need to be in a supportive state of mind. There's a lot of people who are hurting out there, and they just don't know what to do with that hurt, so therefore they start to lash out to anybody who's like,
Yeah.
oh, why you being nice to me, because I can. It's my choice.
I love that vibration, and I'm still good, and I'm apologize for, but I really want to say this in your energy. So I'm in your energy. So I'm in your womb. I want to be clear with that. In your womb in this conversation.
Energy.
So there is an agreement of intelligent, degreed, earned women of color that they are having their own conversation and their own narrative about their male counterparts, and they're not prepared to hear the voice of their male counterparts.
No, they're not.
And they're so involved in their own conversation that when their male counterparts, no matter in pursuit or not in pursuit, they're not open minded enough to hear that conversation, because of what I say is that I call it non disrespectful beauty shop conversation. You know, so you're used to the beauty power. Yeah, I actually use the word beauty power. there is such a comfort zone in the beauty parlor conversation about what the masculine voice is, that the masculine voice, when it appears, is not heard, respected, understood, nor cared about. And the movement is made based on the beauty parlor conversation, and then the actual male piece is not heard. So as we have this dialogue, and as we go forward and as we move forward, you have the opportunity to say, can you think outside of the beauty parlor?
Well, let me say this, because I know we're running down on time. First of all, if you've ever been to a beauty parlor, you're not in there within 20 minutes. Trust and believe. Those beauty parlor appointments, first of all, you're going to sit and wait for a minute, especially if it's somebody who's very popular. So
Three
that could be
daughters.
anywhere between 45 minutes to almost an hour, and then you're going to get your hair did, and that could be anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. So a lot of stuff is going to be circulating in those types of conversations, okay? Now, as much as we can talk about the beauty shop, you already know you got the barber shop down the street too. Y'all have those same kind of conversations. Now, the reason why I think the reason why a lot of women are not having the conversations with the male counterparts is that for so long, by choice, whether it was intentional or not, I think part of the reason why that the male counterparts are not in the conversation is for so long, women with our grand energy and our life force
Okay.
had
Well,
to be both men and women, and the mama had to
yes,
be the mother and the father.
yes.
So we had to be. So we are very acknowledgeable of the yin and yang of our feminine energy and our masculine energy.
Mm-hmm.
And if we need to be that masculine energy, then we'll go there. Now, I cannot sit there and say that men feel comfortable with that feminine energy, because you can't have one without the other. We don't have enough time in
I,
this conversation
I'm gonna
for
end it.
this
I'm
talk.
gonna end it.
For this talk. But just to reiterate my point regarding the beauty shop. The reason why that they're not in the conversations is for so long we had to hold both roles in our existence. And because of that, we do feel like we know, some know more than our male counterparts because we stuck around.
Agreed. My only caveat, my only caveat,
Go
my only
ahead.
caveat is we were systematically, rudimentary removed from that environment.
Lord, listen, look, we all know that. We can all take it back to when James died on Good Times. Look, we already know. We already know. We
So,
already
so,
know.
so the after
We
effect
know.
is cool.
We know.
We are aware of that.
Yep.
We are aware of it.
Hmm.
But here's our marriage. Here's our marriage story. Here's our marriage. That piece is not mentioned. That piece is not mentioned. The systematic intentional removal
It's
of us. So you can
That's
have
not true.
that
I don't believe that.
conversation.
I don't
You're
believe
right.
that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that, Frat.
Ooh,
I don't believe that's not mentioned. I don't believe it's not mentioned. I believe it's always mentioned every single time when you see a single mother trying to raise those children by herself. It doesn't have to be mentioned because our actions speak louder than words. What I'm going to say though is that regarding this systematic system, we know the problem. We're about the solution.
okay, okay, let's go.
So
Let's go.
regardless of whether or not this systematic has been in play for the last 30 years, 40, 50, 70 years, or the century, or even take it back to our ancestral days when they try to break our families up by selling off our children and our mothers away
Yep,
from each other. With
yep,
little boy. But my point is that we know that it's been in place since our existence in this country.
absolutely. Since we were found.
Now we need the solutions, and we
Okay,
need to implement those solutions on a continuum basis.
agreed,
That's all.
agreed, agreed. Well
That's
said.
all.
Look forward to doing this again.
So, yes.
Let
So,
me
so first of all, I want to thank you so much for joining me. I definitely don't want you to go away just yet, but I just want to thank you so much for joining me on this conversation. I know this was a different spin to my audiences who are listening from the normal conversation regarding grief and loss, but honestly, I think the dialogue that me and my frat brother Alfred J. Robinson had talked about, I think there was a lot of grief and loss that was definitely in the deliverance in our tones of the talk and our conversation. And
especially
now it's gonna be a continuation. I'm hoping you all will continue it in your own homes and within your own close group friends and replaying this. But if nothing else, I definitely feel that if we can collectively come together with not just talking about the solutions, but actually displaying them. That's why we're having this conversation. I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to actually do this. That's why I invited him on my show, because my significant other is out there, and in order for me to understand and form a stronger relationship and partnership with the person I want to be with, I got to talk to the fellas, because I'm not a dude. I'm not going to proclaim that I am. There's a lot of grief and loss within relationships, whether it's trauma bonding, whether it's toxicity, whether it's narcissistic behavior, whether it's victimization, and it's just too much. It's just too much. When I come home, my home is going to be a place of peace and
peace.
rest and support, and more importantly, safety. Because if I can't be safe in my home is with me. It's in me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't feel safe within my own skeletal system, I'm not going to feel safe anywhere. So that's what it's about. But you know what? Before I let you go, I'm gonna show this. I'm gonna put some information out here. Okay, so Soror said, I also like to share that some of those beauty shop type conversations are sometimes had with the caliber of person that are really in our circles. So
Correct.
situations experienced by those speaking isn't that of all of us in the room. We can't take on another person experiencing relationships. Well
Correct.
said. Well said, Sora.
Uh,
Absolutely.
uh, uh, uh,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We are responsible what we take in through our ear gates, our eye gates, our nose gates, and our mouth
Yep.
gates.
Yep.
We're responsible for that. And please.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Rebecca. Yeah.
Rebecca. Hi,
Hey.
Rebecca.
See, I was gonna show
Say
some
hello
love.
to that beautiful woman. Honor that minister right there. That is the woman that said yes to me to publish my book, and she is a
Oh,
phenomenal
hey.
woman of God. Please give her not acknowledgement. Please.
Welcome, Pastor Rebecca Simmons. Thank you so much for joining us on It's Not You, It's Not Grief. I've been seeing your comments, and she makes a point. We really don't listen to men on the hard points. Exactly, and we need to. I know I do. I grew up in a household full of men. I'm a tomboy at heart. I'm a daddy's girl. I got two older brothers, so I listen to the fellas, because sometimes I get tired of hearing myself. Shoot. Okay, but thank you so much. And I know she's got some other points here too. I want to show some love. There are some things we just don't want to hear from our men, so there are times when we don't let them speak long enough to hear them out. Point well taken. And I think because of the fact it's about timing. Sometimes we don't want to hear it. Sometimes we just when here's a good example. When somebody loses a loved one to death, sometimes one of the most uncomfortable things you ever want to say to a person who is experiencing that loss, how are you? Are you okay? If there's anything you need, reach out. Or they want to talk, or they want to insert themselves in the moment because of their own experience of their own loss. Just like one of my guests said on the show last week, stop it. Maybe just be silent. Maybe just, maybe the best thing to say is nothing at all, and just be present in that moment,
Mm-hmm,
you know,
mm-hmm.
because sometimes that it's so much swirling around. They just need that moment to just breathe, you know. So that in itself, it's true. And it goes both ways. But again, if you are not in a state of mind to hear what's being said, then of course there's going to be walls, there's going to be boundaries. People are not going to try to hear it, but that's why that's why it was mentioned about being self-aware,
Mhm.
about asking the questions, and not only asking the questions to others, but asking the questions, be honest with yourself, so I definitely agree with that. So, and one thing, last thing, Miss Rebecca Simmons said, God bless you, thank you. Okay. So I'm getting used to this platform here, so I'm going to do my best to try to get this type of format out there live, so we can have people to interact with us here. But again, brother Alfred J. Robinson, author, U.S. veteran, speaker, and of course, a distinguished member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Thank you so much for joining me on this conversation. We're not done. Listen, y'all, we're going to talk. We will have these conversations. It may not be every week per se, but we're going to definitely have some conversations. And you know what? We may even want to bring a couple of more people into the mix, if possible, if possible. So right now, it's just a brother sister thing. So we having these little conversations. So it's our thing. But you never know, never know. But I just thank everybody for listening. Those who are showing some love. Rebecca Simmons said, great book. It was a pleasure to publish your book and work with you, Alfred. She's showing you love. She's showing you love. So that's good. That's good. But again, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on today's platform of It's Not You, It's Grief, talking about trauma bonding. And what started off as trauma bonding relationships ended up going to a whole nother level. But the energy sometimes just directs us like that. But I hope you all come
If
back to our next episode of It's Not You, It's Grief. It's here on YouTube. It's on Spotify. It will be showing on LinkedIn. But definitely, please come back. We would love for you to make sure, we want to have these conversations. I think everybody has been in a state where they just handle things on their own, and we just don't have to. There are people who are out here to support. So, fellas, if you're going through a real tough time through a nasty breakup, relationship, or divorce, reach out to Alfred J. Robinson. Get the book. When was the last book you read? Any of us. When was the last good book you read? Read the book. He'll tell it. He'll be vulnerable. Ask him.
anybody in Newark, New Jersey, I'm actually doing a book signing. My website is Black Man's Memoir. So you can just check me out, Black Man's Memoir, blackmansdivorcememoir.com. You can book me on there. I have a Calendly link. You can schedule an appointment to meet. I'm doing a book signing tonight. I will always post my signings. But I'm here to help men. I'm the first that I know about that's a voice for men. I can speak exactly to what we have experienced and what we go through, that we are terrified to say in our homes. So that's it. That's all I got.
Okay. Definitely. Definitely. Well, thank you all so much. And again, look forward to you guys on the next episode. Please tell people, share it with folks. We love to see more people on our in our conversations, and have a beautiful Sunday. See you guys next time. Thank you.
Thank you for listening, being intentional, and sharing this moment with us. We at It's Not You, It's Grief deeply understand the many facets of grieving, and we want to make sure we can be here for you. Again, thank you for listening, and tune in again wherever you subscribe to podcasts. We look forward to seeing you next time. Be well.